All right. So, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. This is, I'll name this segment later, Spit That Grease, etc., etc., etc. Title in the works. Hopefully you guys are all doing well. I am behind. I realize that. Me and Milk and Cookies wanted to spend, our Valentine's weekend, what I'm saying, proper. Don't want to end up like, Review Tech USA or Wings of Redemption and shit. You're humiliating your wife in front of a bunch of other fucking nitwits for no reason. And so on and so forth. So, yeah, I have missed quite a bit, to be honest with you. This interview with truth seekers and whatnot. Steven, that's what do they call him? Kino Ren or whatever. I'm sure he has some other names too, but he kind of reminds me of Kylo Ren, and so to speak. And I think that's the joke over there on that being said. Big ups to them. Apparently, he's one of Kino Casino's boys, though. He did an interview with DSP. My understanding, it is like 3.5+ hours, give or take, bordering lining 4. I actually have not watched all of that yet. I have read some transcripts of some particular segments, and I have watched a few segments, and that's it. I haven't watched it as a whole. So if I don't watch it before I do a video on it, well, if I do, I do. I don't, I don't. So we'll see how that plays. But given the segments that I was exposed to, actually, speaking of which, big ups to Proper, big ups to Dwight, and big ups to everybody else who shot me a link to it. Very much appreciate that. Given the segments that I did watch, or I did read the transcripts on, I already have a bunch of topic videos to speak on it. So I thought we could go over a few of them over the next next few videos, actually, leading up to me cleaning up some other projects, and then I can get to doing a react, if you will, react to their interview and whatnot. There's all kinds of other stuff going on too. There's some other drama going on in the DSP Detractor community too, at least in a segment of it. But we can address that another day. All right, so anywho, I would assume that most of you guys have already seen the interview at this point. If you haven't, I'll have someone leave the link down in the description for you, because sharing is caring, right? In any case, I have a couple of topics to go over, but we're only going to go over one today. One in particular is over the polygraph test. Now, I'm sure at this particular point that the title has already given me away, but let's reword this. Could DSP pass a polygraph test? I'm asking for this on two fronts. One, Steven wants to actually put DSP on a polygraph test, and he's willing to take one himself. It'd make decent content, so there's a thing. He's willing to fly, him and a friend of his, like an FBI friend of his, are willing to fly out to DSP directly. They'll do it at DSP's home. If not, they'll do it at a hotel on Steven's dime, and they'll do this polygraph. Now, DSP decided to weasel his way out of that by saying, what is he getting out of it? I.e., F you, pay me. Wee! And Steven's like, yo, I'm already chalking all this money up for this. Huh? So as the little bit of back and forth with this, it's not really haggling, they were just going back and forth on it. As this was going on, someone in the chat, let me see here, I don't have their name, but big ups to them either which way. Someone in the chat offered $5,000 if DSP would take 2 polygraphs and pass them both. Now, this shows you what kind of scumbag DSP is. He said he'd take the money, and i.e. he would do the polygraphs. But he said it shouldn't matter whether he passes or not. Just in case you guys don't know what that reference is. An answer is an answer. It doesn't matter if it's a lie or not. An answer is an answer. So obviously that's not going anywhere because DSP wouldn't pass them anyway, and he knows it. If nothing else, DSP had his response or his decompression stream the next day. Of course he will, because that's where he can go and collect his shekels, his pity bucks, his beggar's bounty, if you will. And he basically said that he lied to Steven the whole time anyway. So, and then another detractor came up there. I got a video coming out on that if you haven't already watched it already. But another detractor came up there and engaged. I actually want to speak on that because that's actually pivotal, to be honest. And so on and so forth. So what's the point of this video? I've been rambling along up to this point. I'm asking you as the audience, do you think DSP could actually pass a polygraph test? Now, most of you would say, no, there's not a snowball's chance in hell of him being able to pass a polygraph test. DSP is a pathological liar. If DSP breathes, if he snorts, he's lying. So, of course he's not going to pass. This is where things get kind of interesting. because of DSP's mental state, which none of us should have a problem with addressing, right? Or none of us should have any doubt on that. On top of the fact that, from what I read, Steven himself asked him if he was autistic, which Phil is autistic, obviously, and he asked DSP directly, and DSP says something along the lines that they didn't test for it back in his day, which means it's possible that he was tested for it, and either he don't know, he don't remember, he lying. Is he lying? and so that's a thing in itself. We can address that in another video. In any case, given DSP's warped sense of reality and his mentality, his mental state, I wonder if he could. Now, here's the thing. A polygraph is not admissible in court. If any of you have ever been in a situation where you had to take a polygraph test, which doesn't have to be police or FBI, police and FBI adjacent. People have taken polygraphs for fucking job interviews and shit like that, especially if you're going for like a high clearance in certain things and whatnot, whether within the company or for the government or so on and so forth. I don't need to get into all that. Point being is that as someone who's taken a polygraph himself, you can beat a polygraph. There's a couple of different ways of doing it. I'm not here to talk about that because it varies by the person, and it also varies, at least in my particular case, it varied based on how I perceived, how the questions were given to me and how I reacted to said questions. Well, if DSP is the pathological liar that I think he is, I honestly think if he doesn't pass the polygraph test, it'll come out inconclusive, to be honest. I hate to say that because I want to say that he would justifiably just fail. But I think because of how mentally screwed up he is, I think he may very well be able to curve the testing for it to come out inconclusive, which doesn't mean that he passed and it doesn't mean that he failed. It just means that it's inconclusive. It means that the machine basically couldn't tell. Honestly, I think that would probably be his best bet, because DSP is, and I've said this before, that he's addicted to lying. But now he is addicted to lying because it's so much easier to lie than tell the truth. And I think he lies about dumb shit that he doesn't need to lie about, the smallest minute bullshit, right? And if someone tries to poke a hole in said lie, he'll use the method on how they gathered the information to justify them questioning him, or justify the evidence that they have against him to give him just enough wiggle room to get out. I mean, under those situations, he either should have gone into collegiate wrestling or gone into fucking Brazilian jiu-jitsu, the way he tries to squirm his way out of shit. And then what makes it even more interesting, believe it or not, is the fact that DSP will sacrifice aspects of himself to get away. He'll literally sacrifice aspects of himself to get away, meaning that he will admit to half of a lie, take the criticism, and then turn it around on you and criticize you for how you gathered the information, where you gathered the information, or who you got the information from, and use that as just enough wiggle room to justify to himself, not you, not to the audience at large, but to justify to himself that he's correct in saying what he's saying. He can literally justify just about any lie. It doesn't make any sense to the normal person. So it's never going to get past any of you who are listening, at least most of you who aren't dense. But he can justify it in his own mind, and that's all that matters. For example, I was told that this interview was supposed to be 90+ minutes. I would expect it to run about 2.5 hours, depending on, whatever Steven and was going to bring out on him. It turns out to be 3.5 fucking hours, because DSP did not want to leave. He didn't want to perceive him leaving as being a coward, even though he is a coward, and he wanted the last word on it. In the exact same way he tried to do to Craig during their second interview, in particular. So, and there's a lot of correlations, to be honest with you, between the side scroller interview and the truth seekers interview as well. We can speak on that on another day. I think at best it comes out inconclusive. I think DSP's mental state is so bad that I think his mentality is decent enough to where he can control some of his human aspects, He can keep himself composed enough to get past the questions. It may not come across as he was being truthful, but it might be just enough for it to come out across that he's not fully lying. He may, you know what I'm saying, because inconclusive doesn't mean that you were truthful or you were lying. It just means you were inconclusive. It means that you may have been lying or you weren't being completely honest or whatever. And DSP is two-faced. He'll talk out of both sides of his snout if you let him. So there's that. And to be honest with you, as it pertains to like to serial killers and stuff like that, plenty of them have passed the polygraph test. Multiple of them, in fact, on multiple fronts. It's almost insane if you go back and read some of those cases and shit. Like, it's clear that they had that guy. For example, dead to rights. They had him. Still beat the polygraph. Nah, it wasn't me. I wasn't there. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. And whatnot. And it was wild. So how can I think that someone as psychologically damaged as DSP couldn't do it either? On top of the fact that he has the out, being that shit's not admissible in court. So it doesn't really matter. And yet again, based on that, I'm surprised he didn't just take the polygraph. What's he have to lose? If he's gonna, if anything else, he could just turn around and say, oh, well, you're cool with, you've been talking to detractors. How do I know you didn't mess with the machine? You know what I'm saying? That guy is a friend of yours, so he has stake in this. How do I know he didn't fuck with that? I don't know why I'm sitting here giving DSP excuses, but fuck it, let's run the gambit on it. He could easily say, I was sick that day. He could easily say that I have a condition that I don't want to diagnose or I don't want to disclose to you. He could come up with a bunch of different excuses. I've heard a couple of them. I've heard people come up with excuses on why they failed polygraph tests. Go online. Go on YouTube. You can find all kinds of people coming up with the silliest reasons on how they got out of shit or how they explain shit away. And in some cases they work. So that doesn't mean that a polygraph test is worthless. It doesn't mean that at all. But let's be honest with each other too. Do we really need a polygraph to tell us the Darksydephil, DSP, Darksydephil, Phil Brunel, Dark Geppetto? Do we really need a polygraph test to let that ass clown know that he's lying? Do you really need that? Is that really something that is gonna finally be your eureka moment? That, hey, we shouldn't trust him? Or that people shouldn't give him money, or yada, 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 yada? Let's be honest with ourselves. You know what I mean? Let's be honest with ourselves. Even when DSP is telling the truth, he's still lying. You know what I mean? It's what he is. It's his psychopathy. It's the only thing he has as a method or mechanism of control, which is the reason why he lies in the first place. It's strictly about control. It's getting from one point, well, I'm no expert obviously, but it's one of the reasons why he lies is to get from one situation to another. When DSP is at his most vulnerable, most uncomfortable, he will say whatever he has to say to either appease you or to give you something that he thinks is logical enough to get him out of a situation. It doesn't matter if it sounds ridiculous to assholes like me. It just has to be decent enough or good enough to get it past the person that's in front of him. He has no qualms about lying. We saw that with the side scroller interview. How do you lie in someone's face for 5+ hours, then a half hour later in a Patreon exclusive or whatever that was, and then have the nerve to ask when's the next time you can be on the show so you can talk about games or whatever the fuck? You gotta be a sick individual to be able to do all that. Now, let's be honest, he's not good at it, but he's also doing it to people that are functioning on a spectrum that's far lower than the average person. So he's gonna get away with it enough. Shit, as of late, not even as of late, since the side scroller interview, he's been conditioning his audience, if that's what you want to call them, that, hey, it doesn't matter if I'm telling you the truth or not, an answer is an answer. Basically saying, don't worry about what I tell other people. You're here to support me in the content. Don't worry about the extra shit. And from what I'm seeing in screenshots, that's what people are agreeing with, or at least some of them. I mean, and in that way, he succeeded. I hate to say that. It disgusts me to no end and whatnot, but it's actually the case. He's succeeded. It doesn't matter if he can't bring in new blood. Don't be wrong, he wants to bring in new blood. The Gouty vampire definitely wants to he definitely wants to get a bite out of someone else who's vulnerable, a victim, like a true predator would. But if he don't, then he's just gonna go ahead and hobble back to his fucking little cave, to the Snort fort, broken down, beaten the fuck up. He'll take the rest of the evening to drink himself into a stupor, get his confidence back up, and he'll wake up the next day and play victim, which is what I can only guess is what he did in his in the decompression stream the next day. And the circle starts all over. On top of the fact that he said multiple times when he was backed up when he was literally back to the corner, baby backs were literally on the grill being basted. What comes out of his mouth? Oh, I don't care. This doesn't mean anything to me. I really don't care. I really don't care. I don't give a shit. Don't matter. Doesn't matter at all. The fuck? And then he's trying to play this other angle, which is pathetic, by the way. He's trying to play this other angle that, oh, well, Steven basically is a plagiarist. He took all that information from Kiwi Farms. Here's the funny part. DSP has already used that excuse before. He tried to use that excuse against fucking Secret Limited. He tried to do that saying that, oh, look at all the detractors who gathered up all of the clips and everything, and then he turns it into a big video and gets all the profit. First off, Secret Limited is by far, he's hands down a top 5 detractor of all time. He's one of the most respected people in this community and whatnot. That doesn't mean he's beyond approach. It doesn't mean that he can't be questioned. But his pedigree, right, his track record speaks true. This is someone that I don't know, I've never spoken to. I have no dog in his fight. He damn sure don't have a dog in my fight. So don't get it twisted. And I'm not trying to glaze him or nothing. I'm just saying what it is. How the hell are you gonna sit there and throw that on him? Do you know how many, there are literally legions of people, myself included, that if that dude asked me for a clip and I had it, he has it. I just, without question, say less. No one's gonna feel that way. On top of the fact that it's very clear that Secret Limited gathers his own information. You know what I'm saying? Or he's more than willing to compensate anybody who, you know, who externally would be willing to help him. This, that, and the third. I don't even know why that he would be a question, and I don't even know why DSP would go that angle. But then again, that's what a coward does. They throw other people into the crossfire and shit, in the same way that he don't want to approach PPP like a man, and that's why fucking Cat has to take the hit. Same concept. I mean, she's big enough to do it, but that doesn't mean she should do it. Anyway. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty much my cut and dry of the Polygraph situation. Great concept. No, not a concept. I think it was a great idea to present him. I think it only has, a Polygraph test, to be honest with you, only has as much validity as you're willing to put onto it. To be honest, in this situation, in the court of public opinion, right? We're not talking about the law. It's the court of public opinion. On top of it, I think it would more than likely come out inconclusive because DSP is seasoned. He's very seasoned in lying. He's not good at it, but he's seasoned enough that as long as it comes, if he can beat it enough to where it comes out inconclusive, then he wins, to be honest with you. And then if he does lose outright, he'll brush it off and say it's no big deal anyway, because you guys can't do anything to him because he's not in a court case. So either which way, in his own head, he wins. And if he's willing to, if he walked into the side scroller interview the way he admitted, with the full intention of lying to those people for however long he was going to sit down and talk to them, you're telling me he wouldn't figure out a way to get himself through a polygraph? Or at least try to? That's all I'm saying. Like I said, you're more than welcome to, you're more than welcome to give me, you know, your idea of what your situation is. I don't think he could beat I don't think he could pass a polygraph. I think he could beat it enough by saying it's inconclusive. And all it does is give to us what we already know. End of story. That's not a shot against Steven or the detractor in question. I don't have his name here. My apologies. I don't have his name here. You know what? Now I think about it, the detractor in question, actually, I think it's Darksydephil, actually. He reminds me, his voice in particular, I should say, reminds me of a guy who does comic book summaries, to be honest with you. It's not, I don't think it's Comic Books Explained. I don't know, because I watch a few channels, and it's not the guy who unfortunately died recently or committed suicide, which is what people suspect that happened. Anyway, it's not him. It's and I don't know if it's Comic Books Explained or Comics Explained. I can't remember, but they speak similar, and they have similar cadence in their speech too. That's kind of who he reminds me of a little bit. And that's if it was Darksydephil. I might be messing the name up with the detractor. My apologies. In any case, that's kind of who the person reminds me of. I think it was a good angle to hit DSP4. But in the end, it was going to fail either which way. On top of the fact, let me point this out, the hypocrisy on DSP's part to say, oh, well, I need to have some type of compensation. Not that I'm writing for LTG, because fuck that guy. Even though his crash out, which is probably like 5 days old at this point, maybe 6, when he got exposed for his new place and something about him having a wig, which I don't think he has a wig, and having a roommate. He might have a roommate. Was kind of funny too. Speaking of which, I don't think the LTG wears a wig. I do think he is using, his barber is using what do they call those things? Not concealers, some type of cosmetics and whatnot, to be honest with you. I could see that. That's starting to become a commonplace thing as it's going on with the haircut game. But then again, you know, $100 plus per haircut is getting crazy too. I might actually do an off video on that, just because it's a strange thing. It's a strange thing. I haven't had it happen to me personally, but there's a lot of guys in the barber game that are starting to get kind of silly with them prices, bro. But that's neither here nor there. I think it was hypocritical of DSP saying that I need some type of compensation. But when he wanted to do the co-ops with LTG, and LTG is like, yo, you're gonna have to pay me. He's like, no, get the money from your audience. Get the money from your audience. I'm not gonna pay you. You're not worth that money. You got to do the work, and then you get paid. That's how it works. Well, why aren't you doing it in this situation? Semantics. That's the forbidden detractor lore that we're not supposed to talk about, including that fucking forbidden math that apparently happened with these bank leaks. They went over in the bankruptcy, I think, and that shit went left. And supposedly DSP was up there sweating. That piggy was up there sweating and whatnot. I heard that was pretty entertaining too. But anyway, what are your thoughts? How do you feel about it? Do you think DSP could pass the polygraph? Do you think he could do enough to it be inconclusive, or do you think he would fail outright? I very much appreciate whoever and whatever contributions as it pertains to your thoughts on that down in the comments. Very much appreciate it. Oh, it's a hell of an approach. I gotta say, that interview, I'll have to sit down and watch it all in its entirety, but interesting approach, I gotta say. Interesting approach. I think it's gonna go, it may not be getting the appreciation that it deserves at the moment, but I think in time it will. I think people underestimated the side scroller interview, and that turned out to be a banger, though I do have my complaints, which theoretically you guys should have already heard that by now, but you know me, I'm slacking. I'm working on it. And this one, because Steven isn't really well known, or truth seekers are not really well known, I don't think anybody should have gone into it with any expectations and just see how it played out. But we'll see. In any case, like I said, if you got any thoughts, leave them down in the comment section below. Very much appreciate it. And I'll catch you guys on the flip and whatnot. Take care of yourselves. Of course, I didn't offer any coffee this time around or whatnot, but I will next time. You know what I'm saying? SnortBucks Coffee Company, the best beverage company. And take care of yourselves, people. Catch you for the next one. Later.